Okay. Today we're going to start Samach Beis Amud Aleph Amar Rav. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. Because of our learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, looks like this. Amar Rav. Rav says, Shamet Milsel Rav Yehuda. This is 62b. Shamet Milsel Rav Yehuda. 62a. Thank you. Rav says that I heard something from Rav Yehuda, but I don't know. He didn't hear it directly from Rav Yehuda. He heard something in regards to what Rav Yehuda said, and I don't know what it is. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, "V'layada Abba my Shmuel Rav Yehuda Mechayv on this kitaman beish." Abba, that was Rav's name, was Abba. He said he doesn't know what he heard in regarding Rabbi Yehuda's halacha about if damages are done to something that's concealed in a fire. Also, what he heard was that they made a solution, an enactment for someone that has damages in the fire, which no one knows what it was, that the person that was damaged can swear the value of it and then collect. Usually, according to the Torah, someone swears to exempt himself. We're going to say that he's going to swear to collect, right? This is a special rabbinic type of oath that just like when someone has property that's stolen from him and we find the thief, but we don't have the value of what the property was, we allow the one that was robbed to swear on the value, and then he can collect. So too, by the damages of the fire, he can swear what it was, and he can collect. Why does it have to be by a taman beish? It could be by anything, but anyway, by any fire. But the taman was concealed. We don't know what it is. He's claiming that, you know what I had inside that haystack? I had my whole life savings or something. Okay. Boy, Meimar has a question. Very interesting Gemara here. If there was a musser is an informer, someone that informs the non-Jews, maybe the government or other non-Jews, about some wealth or something of a Jewish person, which is a way. It's an indirect damage, but the laws of a musser are very severe. Musser is what? An informer. Now, what he's doing is he's handing over money or property of a Jewish person to non-Jews, and the halachas are very complex. You know, is he doing it to save himself? Is he doing it? What's he doing it for? What's all of that? It could make a difference, but whatever the case is, the loss that the other Jew incurred because of the Masira, because of the information that was given by this other Jew, that how do we know how big that loss was? So should we say the same takana that the victim should be able to swear of how much the loss was and then collect it from the musser? Aliba demand that we're going to have another sugi about this at the end of a Kamma in a month or two. Aliba demand if we don't charge the musser for this, and the musser really forfeits his life. But if we don't charge the musser money for this, so because it's considered dina de garmi, it's a type of indirect damage that he caused. He didn't actually do the damage. He just told them that this guy has a lot of money, and these guys were coming around taking money from people. So they pointed to that house. So, so if we say that he has to pay, then laiti bailach, then it's not a question. The Mesiras Nami then. If he doesn't have to pay, because why should he swear? It's not going to make the musser pay anyway. When did Meimar have this question? According to the opinion that says that we do judge dina de garmi, which is a type of type of indirect damage. What's the difference between grama and garmi? By grama, everyone says that we don't say that he has to pay. In garmi, we say that it's machlaikas. That itself is machlaikas. What's the difference?
In the case, like of the Soviet Union, the Holocaust, and everything, that there was informers. It was not really monetary. It was like
Other Jewish people.
Right.
Well, it was like their life was like at risk. Would that be the same thing?
Same thing. It doesn't matter. Even if definitely if it's someone's life, but even someone's property also gives the person the status of an informer. There's a discussion about if nowadays giving the government information about another Jew is considered. Maybe there's a famous Aruch HaShulchan that says that it only applies to governments that were like tyrannical governments, and it doesn't apply to where there's actual laws and this. But other people don't hold like that. They say it doesn't matter. It's all fake anyway. Even here, it's fake. It's not supposed to be fake.
It's like an illusion.
It just did. Yeah. The laws aren't set up fake. There's people that are running it that are fake. Right. Okay. I guess that's how it was back then also. Okay, Kiti Bailach also it's kind of Nixal b'Masr, the Mishtaba b'Shakalei. Should the victim of the Masr, the informer, be allowed to swear to say what his losses were and then to collect? The Gemara says Teku. We'll leave this question unanswered. It's an interesting Taisvus here. He brings different opinions. First, he brings the Rif that says, okay, Teku means that you can't collect. We go lenient on the Teku. Then he brings Rav Haigain that says, any Teku, you always divide it in half. You have to pay half. Rabbeinu Tam says that the case was that the Masr is denying what the other person's saying. But if the Masr himself doesn't know and the other person swears, then he's going to take everything. Swear whatever it is. And according to the Ri, he says, and our question is exactly what we said by the Goslin, where the victim doesn't know how much it was. Why is it in a time? According to Rabbeinu Tam, the question was where the Musser knows how much he damaged. He claims he knows, and the victim also claims, and they're contesting each other's claim. But he didn't have a question if the Musser doesn't know, and the Ri says no. He has a question even if the Musser doesn't know. Okay. Who Gabra? There was a person. The Batash Bekaspisa de Chavri. He kicked the chest of his friend. Shadi Benara. And he threw it into the river. I guess when he kicked it, I guess it fell into the river. A safe. Yeah, I said a chest.
Chest. Oh,
okay. A money box. Okay. I didn't look in any of them. I just thought it meant chest, but okay.
No,
it's a safe.
There's two kinds of chest. Chest.
Oh, not the chest,
Yeah.
the torso chest.
Yeah.
The chest as in a box, the chest.
Like
Treasure chest. This was a money box. Money box is a better word. Yes, you'll see in a minute. Shadi Benar in it, he threw it into the river. Asamari Vamar. So the owner of it comes, he says, you know how much money I had in that? I had $1 million. So Yosef Ravashi V'Kamayin. Ravashi is sitting, he's trying to figure out what's going on. What's going to be the halach here? What do we say in such a case? The guy claims that he lost $1 million. And the other guy says, I don't know what was in it. Ravina says to Ravacha, the son of Rava. Some say that it was Ravacha, the son of Rava, says to Ravashi. 1 second, that's our Mishnah. The Chachamim agreed to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that if there's fire damage, that if the fire damage was to a house, that the person, the owner of the house, can claim how much he had inside the house, and the person has to pay all of that damage. Even though usually they say that you don't have to pay for things that are not exposed, but since in a house people keep all their items, that's considered exposed. Even though he lit the fire on the outside, but nevertheless it's still considered exposed. Has to pay for everything. So the same thing over here. The person is saying how much was in the chest, so that's what he keeps in the chest. It's just like a house. People keep their utensils in the house. Amarlei. So Ravashi responded, if it was to Ravashi, or maybe it was to Ravacha B'Rei Rava, he says either Katar and Zuze, if the person would be claiming money, so then Hachanami, you're right. Hacha b'maya skinan, or maybe Hacha, the Katar and Marganisa is not claiming money, he's claiming precious jewels. Much more expensive. If it was just money, then it's just silver coins, pennies, nickels, dimes, whatever. It's a money chest. So what's the din? Does a person, I don't know why it has to ask that, does a person put precious jewels in a money chest? So Tosfos explains, even if there's witnesses that there was a jewel in that, the Gemara is still asking, maybe the person that threw it into the thing didn't have to imagine that there would be.
There's I feel like there's the general concept of I call it, I guess in Shabbos it's called like derech havila, where it's done the normal way,
right?
It's obvious,
right?
Like that. Posting that really these decisions, and I think we saw it before. If there were hidden objects, it didn't pay.
Right. Right. That's probably what's happening here. If this is a normal thing to put inside, then he would have to pay. Question is it normal for people to put jewels inside their money chest? People put diamond rings inside their wallet. Well, the wallet, it gets folded and put it in your thing. But this is like a pushka. People put it's comparable to a piggy bank. The people put their necklaces in the piggy bank. Everything in a safe. Yeah, you put your passports and other documents in the safe. Yeah, that's why I think the money chest is a better translation. That was
But the ideology of yesterday that if he gave someone like a gold coin instead it was silver, like they were only responsible.
Very good. Hillel's asking, what about yesterday? We said that he gave a woman a gold coin and told her that it was silver. And over there, she wouldn't have to pay for anything more than the silver, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes, yeah. So Tosfos says that it's not comparable to yesterday's case, because yesterday's case, she should have been concerned that maybe it really was gold. The reason why he said it was silver was because he didn't want her, maybe she never would have taken responsibility to watch it if he says it's too expensive. So he was playing it down. And it's also not similar on the other extreme to the purse that's in the haystack. You get a purse in the haystack, that for sure people don't do.
So these cases, it depends like on what's custom.
Yeah. How did we come over there? We said that she, if she does it directly, then she has to pay the golden coin. If she does it with negligence that gets lost, then she said, I never accepted more than that. Here he's doing it directly. So according to this, he would definitely have to pay for the precious jewels that were in this. So we're saying that over there she should have understood better. And she's doing it directly, that maybe he was playing it down because he wanted her to watch it. She was saying, yeah, I don't want to watch anything. He says, no, don't worry, it's only silver, it's not gold. Over here, he didn't ask him anything, he just took it and threw it. There's no conversation there.
person was responsible for the hidden items in the farm, like in the haystack.
Yeah, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Yeah, we would go according to the Rabbanan, right? Did we say that clearly? The halacha is like the Rabbanan. I think we've said that before. We're not going to go like Rabbi Yehuda.
I think most cases it goes like
It's Rabbi Yehuda against an individual would go like Rabbi Yehuda, except no, Rabbi Yehuda against Rabbi Meir goes like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda against Rabbi Yossi goes like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda against the sages, it's going to go like the sages. Rabbi Yehuda is Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Loi. Okay. Amalei Rabbi Yemar Rav Ashi. Rabbi Yemar says to Rav Ashi, Torn Kasa de Kaspa Babira. Remember in the Mishnah we said that if someone lights a fire and it burns the house down, he has to pay for the items that he has in the house. We're assuming that what does he have in the house? A few sweaters and a shovel and some pots and pans, some stuff. Let's say he claims that he has a silver cup in the house as a becher. My wife's grandmother, I think she was in Lubavitch itself. I don't know. Anyway, she said the custom in Lubavitch was, yeah. She said that they didn't have silver bechers in Lubavitch. They used the glass juice cup. No one owned the silver cups. Yeah. That's why I thought maybe the stem, the Lubavitch custom of a becher is not to have a stem on the becher because they couldn't afford even you don't have a juice cup with a stem. All the juice cups they used was that. So they said that was the custom. That's what I figured out. But then someone told me, oh no, there's a thing because you hold it and the thing, it's there's nothing to do with the financial situation. All right, whatever. I think a lot of the customs are, there's an economic explanation for most of the customs.
That's that way I think for the talis too.
For the talis, for sure, right? They took off the crown.
No, the talis that you wear.
Right, but the
A lot of
Hasidim.
European couldn't afford a talis after bar mitzvah, so that's why.
Oh, you think so?
That's what I heard.
Isn't that interesting? Yonatan is saying that the reason why they don't wear a talis after bar mitzvah was because they couldn't afford it, and they waited till the wedding to afford it. Okay, we thought you were referring to the Hasidim usually have like this silver crown on the talis along the top, and in Lubavitch they took it off because to release the Alter Rebbe from prison they needed money. Everyone sold the silver that was on it, and they didn't put it back on. Okay.
If someone lights the fire and it spreads to the neighbor, he doesn't have to pay for the hidden item.
Right, which is according to the rabbis.
And then also if he kindles in his neighbors.
Oh, so then that's going to go with, good. If he kindles in the neighbors, that's going to follow Rava's view.
Here says, depending on the rabbis, as
Right. Very good. So, yeah, Hillel points out that that we paskin like the sages, not like the Rabbi Yehuda. However, he's going to follow who was saying that? The Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch. However, even the sages will agree that if he lights it in the other person's property, like Rava explained yesterday, that you're going to have to pay for things that would normally be there. Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch. Okay. Usually in Cheshem Mishpat, the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch are the same. At least the language is pretty much the same.
It's interesting that there hasn't been any mention of the principle of Hamotzi Mekavero al-Haraya. I guess this whole sugya is about when there isn't evidence.
Right.
You can't bring proof, so what do you do?
Right. So in such a case, you see, it's not the question of if he owes. We know that he owes. The question is how much. So in this, we say that an oath would satisfy that.
Yeah. That's why this whole discussion, this Tosfos, is so interesting.
You mean the Teku, Tosfos?
Yeah. You know, this idea of High Gaon, well, let's just split it in uncertainty.
Yeah. Yeah. So a guy, now we're up to the Gemara where a guy claims that he has a silver becher in his house. Amalei. So we say like this. Chazina, let's take a look. If he's a wealthy man, I don't know how wealthy he is. I don't know. Yes, it probably means if he's a guy that spends money on fancy items, not if he's actually wealthy. Now he could be poor now because he spent all his money on fancy items. So the Islakisa the Kasve is the type of guy that would have a silver cup. Inami Inish Mehemnahu, or maybe it's a very trustworthy person, the Mafka the Inish Kabe, that other people would deposit a silver cup by him. Then such a person, we would trust him if he would swear, and he could claim that he had a silver cup. But if not, Lav Kol Kamine, then we're not going to trust him even if he swears. Let's say, how did you have a silver cup? What are you talking about? It says, says I had a Rolls Royce in my thing, and now the hurricanes, people make all ridiculous claims that all the things that they had when the roof broke, something. What are you talking about? You didn't have the Mona Lisa in your thing.
Say there are a lot of people that never think have we spoke about yesterday.
Right.
Driving like a jalopy.
It depends where they live. I think more on in New England, people don't show their money the same way like they show in other places. I think it's in the bank. Okay, Amalei Ravada Bray the Ravabula Ravashi. Ravada Bray the Ravavi says to Ravashi, Ma bin Gazlan Lachamsan. What's the difference between a Gazlan? A Gazlan is an outright robber, and a Chamsan is also a robber. So what's the difference? Amalei Chamsan you have dami, Gazlan you have dami. A Chamsan isn't really a robber. A Chamsan is someone that he forces someone to sell it.
Is that related to the
He's a hoodlum,
word,
but he what is that?
Is that related to the Hebrew word kamsan?
No, kamsan is cheap. This is chamas, like by Noah and the people were. What crime were they doing by the flood? It says the earth was filled with chamas. Chamas meant that they were stealing in a way that couldn't be held accountable in court. So over here it's saying that he's stealing, but he's paying for it. What does that mean? Amalei Yoav Dami Chamsan Karsla. If he's paying for it, you call him a Chamsan. Ravuna says if you force a person to sell something, it's a good sale. Why are you calling him a thief? Like Kash, the Gemara says, Hadam Reitzani, Hadlayam Reitzani. Over there, when it's a good sale, is he forced him until he said, okay, I agree. Over here, the guy's not really agreeing. The guy's just walking over to the guy, grabbing his item that he had in his hand, and then throwing a few dollars at him. So the guy never agreed. He's like, hey, give it back. I don't want your money. I want the thing. So that's a chamsan. We're on Samach Beis Amid Beis. It says gates shiyatzmi pachas tachza patish. Behizik. Gates is a spark, I think. What is it? Does it translate as a spark? A spark that goes out from under the hammer when the blacksmith is working. Behizik, it causes some damage to Chayav. He has to pay for that. Gomel sheyatam pishtan. If there's a camel that has flax on its back, and they load it up, because the camels that can carry a lot, they loaded it up, and he's going in Rishus Rabim. It's so big. As it's brushing by the houses, some of the flax ends up going into the doorway of a store. And it gets caught on the fire that was because they had candles back then for light. It got caught on the candle of the storekeeper, and it burnt down the whole store, the whole palace, the whole house. So Baal Gamal Chayev, the owner of the camel, is Chayev because he loaded it up so much. It's his fault that it went inside the store and it's caught on fire. Let's say the storekeeper kept his candle outside. So then the storekeeper's chayev. Rabbi Yehuda says if it's ner Chanukah, if it's Chanukah candles, those days they used to keep their Chanukah candles outside. So then he would be exempt because he was doing a mitzvah. He was allowed to have his candle there. Otherwise, he should have been more careful not to put your candle there, because your candle could light a camel on fire. Amar Ravina, the load of the candle.
The whole world. Why did it think?
I'm sorry?
It could burn a camel, could also burn the whole
Yeah,
world.
yeah. But the camel that's walking by with the oversized load stretching over the sidewalk and onto the wide load. Right. Ravina says in the name of Rava, you see from this that why is he allowed to have his candle outside to the extent that he doesn't have to pay for damages if it gets caught on fire? We're talking about on Hanukkah. This is because the mitzvah of the candles of Hanukkah is to put them within 10 tefachim from the floor. That means it should be low down in a place where actually it might end up being that a camel could catch fire. If it would enter your mind to say that you're allowed to put the candles above 10 tefachim, why did Rabbi Yehuda say that he's exempt? You should have said, or not. We should say to the storekeeper. We should say in the court, I guess. Why do you put it so low? You know that you're on the edge of the street. You should have put it above the height of the camel and the rider, so that it won't catch on fire. Put it up there with the nice big, tall, like they do in the shul. Put it up high. No, there's no camels that are gonna get caught from that fire. We're gonna see that in a minute. Must be that the mitzvah is to put it below 10 tefachim. Amri, they said, it's not a proof. Really, you're allowed to put it above 10 tefachim. So what did you say? That if that's the case, you should have put it higher than the camel and its rider. Since he was involved in a mitzvah, the sages did not require him to put in all that effort to raise it up so high. There's a special dispensation because of the mitzvah that he's allowed to put it low, even though that theoretically could cause damage, because they didn't require him to put it higher in order to make the mitzvah easier for him. Put it up high means you have to buy a table and wood and things, but get it higher. Amar Rav Kana. Rav Kana says, Darash Rav Nassan Bar Minyumi Mishmeder Rav Tanchum. That Rav Nassan Bar Minyumi says in the name of Rav Tanchum Ner Chanukah Shenichal Amayla Me'asr Mama, a Chanukah candle that's put above 20 amas, psula, can't be over 20 cubits. Psula Kasukah Kamavi, like just like a sukkah is puzzle if it's over 20 amas, and just like a mavi, which is the not the mavi itself, not the alleyway itself, but the beam that goes across the mavi is can't be above 20 amas. The beam that goes across an alleyway, cul-de-sac, you have an alleyway that it's only surrounded by 3 walls. You really need a 4th for rabbinic reasons. So you put a beam across on the top. That beam can't be above 20 amas. It has to be below 20 amas, within 20 amas of the floor. Okay. Start a new pair.
The pacifiers won't see it.
They won't see it. That's right, because the eyes don't catch it. Yeah. Those public menorahs, I think they're careful to make it right below the 20 amas. 20 amas is probably like about 3 stories high. So I think there was an Agam menorah. Remember that? The Agam, the design. It was I think it's in Manhattan or something. I think he made it exactly below 20 amas. Chazinishir, the Chaim Nasha, I don't know. Okay. Meruba midas tashlumi kefel midas tashlumi arba v'chamisha. There's more cases where you have kefel, where you have double payment. Are you familiar with this? If someone steals, so he has to give back the item that he stole, and he also has to give back a second time the payment of exactly what the value of what he stole. He has to pay twice. He's caught. And then there's another thing which is called arba v'chamisha. Someone steals either an ox or a lamb or a sheep. And if he steals that, so he has to pay kefel, right? But then if he goes and he continues his violation, and not only does he steal it, but he even resells it or he slaughters it for food, then he has to pay 4 or 5 times. So he has to pay first the item itself, then the double, then he has to pay either 3 more times or 2 more times. Total of 5 or 4 times. 3 more times would be if it's an ox. If it's a sheep, he only has to pay 2 more times, which is a total of 4. And the reason is because, it said in the Gemara, the Torah has compassion on the thief, because he has to carry the sheep through the street. It's a little embarrassing for him when he's stealing. So, but the ox, he could just walk and hold it in his hand. So he has to pay an extra time. Okay. So it's more common to have, this Mishnah is saying, it's more common to have Tashlumei Kefel, a double payment, than it is to have a 4 or 5 time payment. Why? Shemidas Tashlumei Kefel, when it comes to a double payment, it applies to animals, and it also applies to things that aren't alive. Whatever he stole. When it comes to 4 or 5 times, it only 4 or 5 times only applies to the 2 animals of an ox or a sheep. Does it apply to other animals as well, or is it only those 2 animals? Let's say he stole a buffalo, a deer, a goat. Doesn't say a goat.
Cat.
What about a goat?
What about a cat?
A cat, you can't check. Okay. Ein hagaynev achar aganav misham tashlumei kefel. There's always, the kids are always saying this. Hagaynev min aganav. Someone steals from a thief, he's exempt. Now, what that means is that he doesn't have to pay the double payment, but he's not really exempt. He doesn't have to pay. It says v'gunav mi beisish. If it was stolen from the owner, he has to pay double. But if it's not stolen from the owner, it's stolen from the thief. So then you don't have to pay double, but you're still not allowed to steal it, and you still, unless you're intending to return it or something. And and then you're like taking it back. You're allowed to take your own item back. And but you don't have to pay the double payment. And the same thing is, if someone steals from a thief and then he goes and slaughters it himself, so he doesn't have to pay the 4 or 5 times. Now the reason for that is because since he's exempt from the double payment, so he doesn't even have a 4 or 5 times. He would have a 3 or 4 times, which is not the original halacha, and so therefore he's exempt from the whole thing. Yeah, there's no 4 or 5 times anymore. By a if someone steals from a thief, you lose the kefil, then you don't, the 4 or 5 times doesn't apply either. Okay, now the Gemara is going to be medayik. It's going to imply from the Mishnah that since it didn't say something, so we're going to say obviously it doesn't hold of it. Let's take a look at this. Let me explain what just happened. Excuse me. If a person, how does you say hello? If there's a new value, you got it though, right?
Yeah, I got it.
If a person is watching an object, he's a shomer. Let's say he's a shomer chinam, and the guy comes to take the item back. He doesn't give it back to him. He claims that it got stolen. This is called a toyin tanas ganav. His claim, and what happens? And he swore that it's not his possession, and he lied. It really was. So then the halacha is that if we catch the thief, if we find out that he's the thief, we catch him, this guy, the shomer, what we do is we make him pay double. He has to pay kefil. Because he claimed that it was stolen, he has the halachas of when he gets caught, he has the halachas of a regular ganim. All right. So now, what happens if he then goes and shechs it? So the Mishnah doesn't say that kefel applies in more cases.
What animal is this?
Let's say it was an ox or a sheep.
Matters. A sheep would be 4 and ox would be 5.
Exactly. Right. So either one, either ox or sheep, 4 or 5. The Mishnah doesn't say, I put it on off the Mishnah doesn't say that kefil is more common than 4 or 5 because the only thing it said that the reason why kefil is more common is because that it applies to things that aren't the animals as well. It doesn't say that it applies to a toyen tanas ganav, the guy that claims that it got stolen, but 4 or 5 doesn't apply to him. Why doesn't it say that distinction? Because 4 or 5 does apply to him. That's what we're proving. The rule of Rab Chia bar Abba, that 4 or 5, that payment of 4 or 5 applies even to someone that claimed that it was stolen when it really wasn't, and he had it in his property, and then he slaughtered it or sold it, that he also has to pay 4 or 5, and we see that this is a support for Rab Chia bar Abba.
In that case, he said it was stolen. Just finished that he was the one that stole it.
Yeah, but no, he had to actually, like Shalom said, you have to swear that it's not on your property, and you have to swear that you didn't use it. You have to, there's 3 swears then. Okay, we'll see in Bab Metzia. Ikadami, those that say Lema Messiah, that this was a suggestion. Let's say that this is a support for Rab Chia bar Abba, Rab Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Yochanan, Atayin Tanas Kana Pikadam, Misham Tashlum Kefel, Tavachamachim, Misham Tashlum Abba Chamisha, that a guy that claims that it got stolen from him has to and when he gets caught that he also slaughtered it or sold it, he should have to pay 4 or 5 times. That's exactly what we're seeing in our Mishnah, because our Mishnah didn't mention that was a distinction between kefel and 4 or 5 times. The Gemara says miktani ein bain. Did it use the expression in the Mishnah, there's no distinction other than? Because that would have told me exactly what we're saying. The only distinction is by a living animal or by other items, balei chayim. But because it didn't use that expression, the only thing it said was meruba ketani. It's more. So meruba doesn't mean that it's only that and nothing else. Could be Tana v'shayir, that the Tana said one thing, but it left out other cases. It's not a strong proof. It could be it just didn't say everything that it wanted to. That it could have said. It wasn't a like a anthology of all the possibilities, something like that, a full list. It was just giving me an example. Okay. How do we know that kefil applies to other cases? Sean, can you get me? You see all those white svarim over there? Next to the white svarim is a blue sefer. It's a chumash. How do we know that kefil? Thank you. How do we know that kefil applies to all of these cases, even to things that aren't animals? So we quote a pasuk. It goes like this: the Tanur Rabbanu was taught in a brisa. I'll call the Pesha. See, Chaf Beis. Is it Chaf Beis? Shmais 22. Yeah. So we're talking about over here the 4 guardians. The verse starts off in English. If a person gives his friend money or articles for safekeeping and does not pay him for his services, that's in parentheses, that means it's a shem chinam, and they are stolen from the man's house, then if the thief is found, he must pay 2-fold. Okay. If the thief is not found, the homeowner must approach the judges if he is challenged by the owner to swear an oath that he has not laid his hand upon the friend's property, and then he is exempt from compensation since he was not paid for his services. Okay, now the pasuk says, in every case of dishonesty, which is al kol devar pesha, when swearing an oath, whether it's about an ox, about a donkey, about a lamb, about a garment, or about any lost article, if a witness will say, this thing here is the very thing which you swore about, saying that it's not in your possession, then the claims of both parties shall come to the judges, and whoever the judge declares guilty must pay twofold to his friend, which basically means Tayan Tanas Ganav, someone that claims that it got stolen and then he's found with it, he has to pay double. Okay. So in this verse, I'll call Devar Pesha on any case of dishonesty. It goes on like this. I'll call Devar Pesha, that's a klal. Any case of dishonesty, that's a generalization. Al Shur, Al Chamar, Al Sev, Al Salma is a prat. An ox, a donkey, a lamb, or a garment. Those are specifics. Al Kol Aveda, on any lost object, which means that he was watching it. Chazaru klal, that goes back to the general. Right. That goes back to the generalization. And what's the rule? Klal prat klal. If you have a generalization, a specific, and then a generalization, you have to done elikana prat. So you say that it goes according to what's similar to the specifics, but not specifically the specifics. Everything that's similar. Just like all of those specifics were things that are movable, personality, and they have intrinsic value, as opposed to a document that we're going to see. It doesn't have intrinsic value. It just is used to collect money, but the document itself isn't intrinsic value. Also, anything that's movable and has intrinsic value. Yatsu karkois, this is excluding property, realty. Shana metal plan, that's not movable. So if someone would steal property, how would he steal property? He takes his fence and he pushes it over a few feet. So he encroaches on the...
or he gets false documents.
Or he gets false documents, okay. Okay, but he finds out that the property he's not going to have to pay double. Yatsu avadim, it's excluding slaves if someone steals a slave. Because we have other gemaras that they're compared to property. Yatsu staras, and it excludes also documents. Shafal pisha metaltlin, even though they're movable, but in gufamamim, but they don't have intrinsic value. We don't consider let's say the paper doesn't have value. Yatsu hektish, and also we exclude hektish because because the last word of the pasuk was he has to pay double to his friend, and hektish is not his friend. Okay, so that could be our answer to the Gemara's question. Where do we know that kefal applies to all of these cases? Because we have a klal prata klal since it's including everything that's similar to those details, which is any personality, basically, besides for documents, not property and slaves. So he would have to pay double. Gemara says, 1 second. How do you know that that's really a good limud? Maybe it doesn't apply to birds because all the cases of the animals that we said over here are animals that when they die, the carcass gives off impurity through touching and through lifting up. But a bird doesn't give that off. So this would mean that bird is not included in these specifics. The Gemara says, how could you say that? One of the items that you said, you spoke about a garment. A garment doesn't even have impurity. It doesn't give off impurity. So how could you say it's only referring to things that give off impurity? It says, we were talking about animals. The types of animals that you mentioned were only animals that gave off impurity. Ema bali chayim davershin of lasmitam magamasi and davershin of lasmitam magamasaloi. The hakol chad v'chad. We go to the top of Samach Gimel 63 because each one of these klalaprat bapi nafshei darshin alei avalei faslai. The way this is explained is like this: when I have a klalaprat the klal, what I really do is I take the first klal, the generalization. I take one specific, and then I put the generalization at the end. I get a sandwich, klal I get a prat sandwich for each one of the pratim. So I take the klal and I take one prat and put it inside, and then I put a klal at the end. Then I do it again, klal a prat and a klal, and I do it again, which means that I don't do all the pratim and klalim together. I don't mix them all together. What happens now is that you can't say that the reason why it says the garment is to tell me what type of animal it's going to include. No, it's only coming to tell me what type of garment it's coming to include. Animals are coming to tell me animals. The garment was coming to tell me garment. And therefore, I'm not going to have I'll only have the types of animals that give off impurity. I have a life but it won't tell me birds. Where it says 1 second. Imkain, if that's the case, nichtav rachman echad prata, then why did he need 3 types of animals? Just have 1 type of animal. Hi nichtav, which one would I want to say? Hi nichtav rachmana, which one? Ikas rachmana sharif would only say the ox have a karvel gamas beach and shen karvel gamas beach light. There you would say only animals that are brought as sacrifices, like an ox, but not a donkey. Because Rachman Chamarif would say a donkey, which is not brought as a sacrifice. Have a mina kaddish b'bechayrin, shen kaddish b'bechayrin. I would think only animals that the firstborn is holy, which is by a donkey. Amri, so you say came nechta Rachman Ashar b'chamar. Okay, we'll have both. We'll have animals that are sacrifices, and we'll also have animals that are holy. Okay. Now, what that would include is because that are an animal that's holy from. So I don't need a chamar to tell me that because I already have the shar, which already tells me that. So the chamar is teaching me that, but I could already get that from the shar. The shar must be teaching me other animals as well, not just these 2. Like which types of animals would it be teaching me? Maybe animals that aren't brought as sacrifices. So, okay. But it would still need to have both of those animals give off impurity into touch or to lift up. Selamali, why does it have to say se? Why does it have to say a lamb? Because it's so not necessary. It's not adding anything to the ox. It's not to the donkey it could be adding, but it's not adding anything to what we already have. So it must be coming to include birds. The Gemara says maybe it's only coming to include kosher birds. That also gives off impurity when it's swallowed. The rule is with kosher birds is that they don't give off impurity through touching, but they do give off impurity through eating it. So it eats it. But non-kosher birds that don't give off that impurity, the clothing of a person doesn't become impure when he swallows it, then maybe not. Maybe if someone steals a non-kosher bird, he doesn't have to pay double. That's where we're holding right now. The Gemara says, Kol ribuyahu. At the end of the verse, at the beginning of the verse, it says, Al kol devar pesha, for every dishonesty. Because it says every, that means that it's coming to include everything. So we basically dropped the klal of prat klal. We're not using that. We're saying that it's coming to include everything. Gemara says, afterwards, the Gemara is going to say, so why do you have those details if you're including everything? We'll see in a moment. Every time it says kol, it's coming to include everything. But by Meiser, it says kol, and we said it with a klal prat. We had this Gemara a week ago, so I'll just go through it quickly. It says, it says you'll use the money, Meiser Sheni, when you go to Jerusalem. You use the money for everything their soul desires. Whether it's cattle, sheep, wine, or beer. Prat, I don't know if sheikher means beer, hard liquor. Prat, it's specific. Anything your heart desires. You have to prat. What are you allowed to spend Meiser Sheni money on? Anything that's similar to the specifics. Ma prat, mefurish, pri, mi pri, vigduli karka. Just like it's a fruit from a fruit, which is like wine that comes from grapes, which is a fruit. So it's a fruit from a fruit. And it has to grow from the ground. Which includes animals as well. So it's coming to tell me that you're allowed to buy it. You're allowed to use that money for all of these things, even though it uses the word kol there, and it's telling me that it's a klal prat klal. It says Amri bakol is klala. Kol is ribuya. There's a difference between bakol. The word over there is bakol asher ta'ava nafshecha. Over here it says just the word kol. Kol is just coming to tell me everything. If you want, you could say kol is actually a generalization as well. Kol the hacha, but over here it's different. Over here it's coming to tell me that it's including everything. Michti. Why? Originally the pasuk says klal prat klal ksiv kitin eshel reo klal kesef kelim prat lishmar hador klal. I read the beginning of the verse. If someone gives an item to be guarded, so it says if someone gives to his friend, that's a generalization. Silver or vessels, or money or vessels, that's a specific. Lishmar, to guard, that's a generalization. Bisal Kadaita Chayal called of our Pesha Namil Klal Prat Tudasa. Why do we need to have two klal prats in the same topic? Both of them teach me that you have to pay double. I'll call the Pesha Lamali. Why does it have to say it? Shmamina Ribuyu. It's coming to tell me that you pay double on everything. Now the Gemara says Hashtam Kol Ribuyu Hani Prati Lamali. So why do you need the specifics if it's coming to include everything? It's including everything. You don't need the specifics to exclude. And it says no, the specifics are excluding something. First of all, you don't pay double on land. You don't pay double on slaves. You don't pay double on documents. The fact that it says a salma, a garment, that's coming to tell me that it needs to have a siman on it in order to pay double. Which is an interesting halacha. If there's no siman, there's no recognizable mark on it, then you don't pay double on it. That's at least the way Rashi learns. I'll call Aveda. What does it say for any lost object? Like the that's coming to teach me the statement that we said before. I'll tell you in Tanis Ganav Aveda that if a person is watching an object, he claims that it got stolen, he has to pay double when they find that he really had it. Talking about if he's watching an object that was lost in order to return it, also he claims that it got stolen from him, he has to pay for that as well. Woo! Okay, let's leave it over here. I don't think we're going to learn tonight.